All right, so now we're going to talk about something called wordiness. Well, what is wordiness? This is what happens when writers use more words than are necessary in order to make the point. It's usually a stylistic issue, but it can be problematic when it's interfering with the reader's ability to understand what it is you're trying to say. How can you tell if your writing is too wordy? Well, like I said, wordiness is relative, but bottom line, your writing is too wordy if it is difficult for the reader to understand. Let's look at the following two sentences. In the first one, the manager wanted to maintain the working group's efficiency. To do that, she called the entire team to a meeting to make a review of what each individual member had contributed during the previous 2 weeks. Okay, that's a mouthful, and it's two sentences to say the same thing. We have repetition, and to do that, do what? That thing that I mentioned in the first sentence. There's just a lot of words going on. Let's look at the revision. To maintain the team's efficiency, the manager called a meeting to review each member's contributions during the previous 2 weeks. Even the flow there is a little bit better because you've gotten rid of all the extra words. If you're having a hard time identifying wordiness in your own writing, just ask someone else to read it and look for the parts that are wordy. Is wordiness always wrong? No. The number of words that a writer uses is very much a matter of style. What's considered wordy in one genre or situation is going to be too brief in another. So as a writer, it is your job to be aware of the rhetorical requirements of your writing. Now, what are some common types of wordiness? Well, you have vague descriptions that dance around the point. In other words, you have a lot of different ways of saying something and you never really say specifically what you mean. Redundancy is a big problem, especially with adverbs and adjectives. You don't need to say the whole entire world. We get it. You can say the whole world or the entire world. We don't need whole entire. They mean the same thing. Or you might have some over-reliance on negative constructions, rather than saying he was not sympathetic, just say he was unsympathetic. Use the word that means the negative of whatever it is you're saying, and then you'll get rid of all of those nots. Have you ever had a sentence where you have to decipher the knots, like he was not unkind? We're like, oh, what does that mean? There's too many bouncing back and forth there. So if you have an over-reliance of negative constructions, that's a wordiness issue. You might have a lot of hedging or qualifying. This is a lot of things like generally, basically, sort of, kind of. You usually don't need those words. Or you might have some wordy phrases, in order to, the reason was because, on account of. All of those are just fluff. It's just extra words that don't need to be there. Occasionally, you might run into passive constructions with a dummy subject, like your sentence might start with it is or there are or it may be that. Usually, those are empty words. You can get rid of them, and the sentence will be a lot stronger. Now, none of these issues is wrong. It's just that these types of things lead to wordiness that can get in the way of the reader understanding what it is you mean. So, how can you revise your wordiness? Well, first of all, wait a while before you revise. Get some distance from your writing, because if you finish typing a paper and then you go back and start trying to revise, you will read what you think you wrote, not what you actually wrote. So that's why distance. Give yourself 5 minutes, get up, walk around, do something else before you come back, and then when you do, you will start to see those sections that are unnecessarily wordy. Now, another way that you can revise wordiness is to combine the sentences. So if we take that first sentence here, the manager wanted to maintain the working group's efficiency, well, we can make these two sentences one by just adding in order to maintain the working group's efficiency, the manager called the team to a meeting. So that's one way to shorten up your word count. What's another way? Well, you can get rid of this verb plus object combination and just replace it with a single verb. What I'm talking about is right here, right? To make a review. Well, I don't need to make a review. I can just review. So a called a meeting to review is shorter than called a meeting to make a review. So you can get rid of those verb plus an object. The verb is to make and the object is review, and you can do that with a single verb. So that'll shorten it up for you too. Another thing you can do is to get rid of some of those long phrases and just repeat them with a single noun. Like we have the working group's efficiency. Do I need working group? Can't I just call them a team, right? Doesn't that work for me? So that's one other way to shorten up your writing and get rid of wordiness. Moving on, always, always, always delete those unnecessary words. Like in order to usually is unnecessary. Just say to maintain their efficiency. And then we have the manager called the entire team to a meeting. Do we need that? Can't we just say the manager called a meeting? I'm guessing that the team is going to be there. And then we've got the rest of the sentence. So this is much shorter and much cleaner than the previous sentence that we started with. So just remember, your overall purpose in writing, you want to make sure that you just make your point, right? When it comes to wordiness, sometimes less really is more.